so let's start. Thank you for being here on this kind of like irregular PD event. Normally we always have it on Wednesday afternoon. So very glad that at least you came and discovered that we have an interesting tale to tell you. So I'm Koen van Gorp. I work at CeLTA, and this is my colleague Peter de Costa, who works for the SLS program and in Linglang. And yeah, please remember to all sign your name up on the sign-up sheet, and then later on we'll have evaluation sheets. So yeah, let's
hold on to this.
Yeah,
let's my laptop here. Everyone, thanks for coming. I'll kind of give you an overview in terms of what to expect. We'll talk briefly about the history of the project, how we engaged in it, what we know up to this point, and what are our future plans. And we're hoping to wrap up the event with a little hands-on activity. Okay. So the genesis of the project really begins with me teaching an IH course. I taught it in the spring of 16 and 17. It was titled Identity and Ideology in Multilingual Settings, a very general education course. And I was very interested in to find that, given that I had diversity of students available, right, many of them, and me also adjusting to the fact that this is a land grant institution, that many of the students in those classes were, of course, first generation college students, many of them coming also from Michigan and not having had much exposure and openly disclosing it to me that they'd never really interacted with someone who was of a different culture and who came from a different linguistic group. And so Koen and I then decided to put forward a proposal. At that time, the Citizen Scholar program was kind of taking off, and so we decided to put in a proposal for a collaborative project. And what we conceived of was basically a hands-on ethnographic research set of activities to explore the relationship between language and identity. And what we wanted to do then, of course, is to help students identify power imbalances and how these identities, and show them how identities are shaped by social norms and ideologies in a multilingual world. So that's kind of the official course project. But I'll speak more closely about why am I drawn to this. I said earlier that what puzzled me in the IH course was to find that in some ways how skewed the perspectives of our students can be. All right, so we've heard about immigrant and refugee populations in Michigan, but at the same time we need to remember that the white minority working class individuals are also feeling very much pushed out of a comfort zone. And this turned up in the Washington Post the other day, where this couple, in fact, working at a chicken plant, found that they couldn't really interact with their Spanish-speaking colleagues on the plant floor, on the factory floor. And so I think it goes both ways, right? I think sensitizing students to the fact that the world has changed. We're living in a very multilingual world, and that we need to be aware of the identity politics that exist in our midst. And so that really is the large impetus to this project. And as a critical applied linguist, I've always been drawn to issues surrounding social justice. And in the world of education, two very big movements that have come over the last 2 years is the call to create culturally sustaining pedagogies, building off the work of my former professor, Gloria Letson-Billings, who for the longest time talked about culturally relevant pedagogies, right? And both Django and Alim, former Stanford grads, as was Gloria, have kind of taken it into the 21st century to conceive of this idea of culturally sustaining pedagogies. And in the education world, this is super hot. All right, everyone's talking about linguistically and culturally diverse learners. Of course, mainly from a K-12 perspective. Also very, very popular these days is Ophelia Garcia's work on translanguaging. And Koen and I had the opportunity to meet with Ophelia at the Graduate Center in New York in April. One of our former students, Kate Zeltzer, is on board with our project, and we'll see a little bit more about our plans in the future. Kate will be here at the end of next week, together with our research partners, as we seek to expand this project. Okay. So I'll hand the session over, or turn it over to Koen, and he's going to talk about his own.
Okay. So I think that's where Peter's interest and mine are very much aligned with being focused on educational justice. So I'm going back now a step in time. I've been working like for 25 years at the University of Leuven in Belgium, in the Dutch-speaking part, working with teachers and schools on kind of developing curricula for Dutch language learners and developing the Dutch academic register that often these learners have trouble with. And schools always are very committed to learning these children and these students Dutch and the academic register, but on the other hand, it kind of also pushes them to take a stance which kind of repels the first language, which kind of like bans the first language out of the school. So this is a banner which was not uncommon and unfortunately is still not uncommon, which kind of like asks the parents of these children even to speak Dutch at home, saying, look, we speak Dutch here at our school, please add to your Dutch language learners learning the language by speaking Dutch as well. An advice definitely that we do not welcome, because we feel that it kind of like inhibits their language learning rather than kind of like stimulates it. And this very much aligns with, this is one of my favorite quotes, which I feel always why I've been interested also in the position of the first language, of the whole language repertoire that children, that students bring to learning, and that it is in fact, if you kind of deny a child to use its own language in the classroom or even on what was happening on the playground, basically you are saying, look, we don't want anything to do with you because your language is who you are and we kind of reject you as a whole person. That's basically the underlying message that you give. And so next to working on the one hand, learning environments for Dutch as a second language, we always felt that we needed to address this issue of what is the role of the first language? How can you use that first language, not only as a communicative practice, but also in education? How can you kind of like use it to help children learn Dutch? It has a role to function there. And again, Ofelia Garcia has written a lot about that. It's called translanguaging, how you can use translanguaging practices as a very effective education practice. And that's where I'm coming from, talking to schools, exploring the language repertoire of the children, and we'll see some more of these language portraits, and kind of working again with teachers on how you can fostering language awareness with basically the teachers as well, but also with students, with children, learning them how language works, not only reflecting on language as a system, but as how language is being used, the socio-linguistic reality of languages. And I think that's both, we have a big concern in educational justice, and that kind of like helped us work on this particular course and on this particular project. And what we did is we started out developing this course, and it hasn't really become a course, and we'll talk about that later, because like the Citizen Scholar program was kind of like rethinking its own existence, and at some point we heard that we couldn't really move on with developing this course, so we kind of changed a little bit our project. But what we did is we kind of developed, not really developed, and we explored some of these really hands-on activities with undergraduate students, with graduate students. So we have a student, and this is a student that you all know if you're a regular visitor of CeLTA, so our own Ellie Drake, her language portrait, and you're going to see her in a minute talking about that. And so she drew, for example, her portrait, she wrote her autobiography, we did some work on linguistic landscapes and basically digital stories about language learning as well. And so, let me see now if this, okay, nope, okay, this works. So let's hear Ellie about her own linguistic portrait. Oh, why isn't this, wait. This isn't showing up. How do I change that? Do you know me yet? I'm not that familiar with Apple. No, it's not. Wouldn't be there.
It's not that. Can you turn it back?
Yeah.
Which is just
It's correct.
skip.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you experienced doing the linguistic portrait assignment?
What I like about the linguistic portrait assignment is that it quickly followed right up after the linguistic autobiography, and a lot of the information that I had to assemble in that assignment directly influenced how I completed the portrait, because when I completed the portrait, I decided to represent the languages that I had interacted with through flags of the country where I had experienced the language. And so I have the American flag for my native English speaking, and then for each of the hands I colored in a German flag and then a Swedish flag, because I had hands-on experience actually on the ground in both of these countries and was completely immersed in the language. And then the feet, I have the French flag and the Chinese flag, because I had 3 years of French and then 1 year of Chinese in high school, and so I have the foundations for those. And so if I decide to build more on them in the future, I'll have the steady foundations, and so I'll have that strong footing. And because of the opportunity that I got through the linguistic autobiography, I was able to easily transfer all of my experiences onto a more visual media.
Okay, so I'll show 3 snippets of, so how do I do it?
So go back to your presentation and then click on the link.
Okay, I don't see my cursor here. This is. Oh, okay, there's a cursor, okay.
Yeah.
No. Let me just show. Perhaps this makes it easier. Okay.
Control.
So go back into presentation mode, click on it, and then it's extended into the second screen, which is why it's...
Okay.
Okay. Click on your second link.
Okay. No. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
And then drag your cursor over to the second screen. So off of that screen to the right. There you go. And then go down. There you go. Good.
This is
Personal reflections about this process that you'd like to share with us?
Something that I learned throughout this whole course is because it was so personal and it's so tied to the individual, is that I was able to customize a lot of the assignments. And while linguistics isn't something that I would necessarily say that I am super passionate about, although I do love language itself, I found myself getting really interested in theories and concepts because I could see how they directly applied to me and my community around me.
And then one final snippet on identity. And now I've gotten the hang of this.
So how do these assignments make you feel about your own identity as a language learner?
I think it really made me feel almost disappointed in the fact that I don't have more of a linguistic experience. Because in the United States, we're a very monolinguistic society, which is sad because there is so much linguistic diversity in this country, but we don't encourage learning, or we don't allow for the correct environment to learn languages at the ages at which we should be learning languages. And by looking at how my own experiences my small personal experiences have influenced who I am as a person, I think that if I had had the chance to learn more language at an earlier age, I would be such a more well-rounded and developed person than I am now.
Okay. So of course, I don't know what you think about these. These are nice reflections, what you can work with in your class. I think perhaps Ali was a little bit of a model student here, and we're not expecting everybody to immediately get to that level of reflection, but I think these activities definitely kind of create a kind of classroom environment where you can talk about language, where you can talk about identity in hopefully in a safe way. I want you to introduce to a second one. This is the language portrait from a graduate student at the College of Education. So this is Christina, and just have a look at her silhouette, which is basically especially colored in blue. And there are some blue representing English and some other languages, as well as little dots both on her body and outside of her body. And I'll just show you a brief extract from her language portrait. And the picture is still there, but a little bit smaller. And what I felt was really interesting about this one is, although Christina also doesn't speak that many languages or feels that she's basically a bilingual or really multilingual user of different languages, she reflects on the use of English and on the different Englishes that she has, on the different registers that she has, pointing out that she uses a light color of blue as representing her everyday English register, and that's the center part of her body, but also uses a darker color of blue to represent her so-called academic English, which is important as a formal register and which comes with power and prestige in society, particularly in academic contexts. And then she also refers to her own language background, which represents basically different languages, both Italian, German, and Hungarian, and how she feels about that, and why she positions the languages as she does, both on and in her body, as well as outside her body. So we felt that these kind of activities, as I pointed out earlier, kind of like help us foster a certain language awareness with our students about what language is, how language functions, how language ties in with who we are, and what we do in our everyday functioning in the world. So we engage students in a process of reflective inquiry on their own language practices in and outside school. And again, it's talking more about language use and about speakers of a language and the context in which we use language than the languages themselves. So the languages themselves are not the object of study, but how language basically functions in our everyday lives and in the world that we live in. And then again, this helps us to reflect on how language again is really connected to our society and how it functions in a society, how it kind of is used in issues of power and in ideological processes, basically. So we felt that we were on the right track. So at some point we were kind of like told that, well, stop developing that course because we're probably not going to offer that course. So we were thinking of, okay, how can we put the work that we've done up till now to a good use, and how can we proceed with this project that we felt definitely had some value and was really interesting. So we came up with the idea of making these multilingual resources and these learning opportunities basically accessible to anyone who is interested in linguistic diversity, in learning about different ways that language interact and shape identities, and again in educational and social justice. So we started to develop a digital open access repository. So we took all the activities that we had, we already took all the artifacts that we had, we gathered syllabi from instructors working on language and identity, and we put them on a website, and we wanted to make them available. And the big idea was that this repository would probably function in the future not only as a pedagogical base, as a pedagogical repository that people could basically go and explore and find different and very interesting activities, but also potentially as a resource for research. Having all these artifacts could be basically a good, interesting database that people could perform research on and add and keep adding to it. So that was our idea, and that this open access repository would help us to engage in an active dialogue with anyone that is basically interested in this kind of topic. So let me now try this again. We developed a website, and instead of, and So it is a little bit hidden. It's in the URL. It's not a really transparent URL. It's in Peter's MSU domain, and we will make it public later on. So when we kind of like constructed this website at the moment as something just to work with, to give us an idea and to give the people we are in touch with an idea about what it could look like. So this is far from a flashy website. It still needs a lot of work, but it is something to show to show the outside world what we were thinking of, what we are working on. And instead of taking you through the website, so one of our the students that worked with us, she made a tutorial, and I'll show you now to walk you through basically the website. So, and let me give this. Oh no, I'm here. Okay, introduce you to Maddie. Or the voice of Maddie. Oh, okay, Adobe. Oh, okay, so we don't have.
Screencast.
Do we have another browser that has Flash?
If you,
Is this one is?
I don't know.
Is this Firefox? Let's see.
On the link, maybe you can right click it and choose for browser.
Oh, yep. Okay, so this one's. That's this. Sorry for this.
I have it playing.
Oh, can you plug it in?
I don't know how loud it's going to be, but it's working.
Oh, otherwise we.
I provide a short tutorial around the site highlighting how to navigate some of the major functionalities supported by digital space.
That way too quiet, or you guys can hear it.
Can we just plug it in quickly, Amanda?
Sure.
Yeah. I think wonderful. It's the Flash problem.
The other 1,000 things I have open on my desktop. Oh, it's playing, but it's not.
It's not.
There's something to do with how it's.
Okay, let me try again. The Safari, yeah, the same.
I'm looking at this. I have a message that's asking me.
You know?
Are you guys seeing my screen?
It's gonna take a while.
Is this off? No, it's on. How strange. Yeah. It says you can't detect another display, so it's just saying like it should be, it's not detected. It can even connect externally to.
That's what they do like Apple.
So it's not, is yours playing? I'm gonna try this.
She was working.
now it's off, because it's the back one.
There we go. Okay. Lifesaver, Emily.
Welcome to the Linguistic Diversity website, an open
Yes.
digital repository of multilingual resources and experiential learning opportunities. In this video, I provide a short tutorial about the site, highlighting how to navigate it and some of the major functionalities afforded by digital space. On the left side, you can see the major menu bar. This menu organizes the major pages on the site. So you can see, for example, an About page, join the conversation, browse exhibits, browse collections, browse items, contact us, and resources. Some of these pages then direct to subpages. Under the About page, for instance, you can see that the site has been further organized to include the project vision, information on the project team, and a partners page. Feel free to browse this menu bar at your leisure. As you do so, keep in mind that the overall look and feel of the site can change. In other words, almost every aspect of the site is customizable. For the current purposes, we have staged this site in order to share its potential and the project's potential with you all. There are a few fundamental ways that people can engage with this site. As a visitor to the site, you can browse for content in a few ways. Exhibits are intentionally curated content. If you click Browse Exhibits, you can see that we have created a sample exhibit, in this case, a sample course. Clicking on the exhibit title, Identity and Ideology in the Multilingual Settings, a course, you can then enter the exhibit. Along the right side, you can see every page within the exhibit and can navigate from page to page, working forwards and backwards as you like. Why might this feature be nice? In the case of the course you see before you, we are able to give a clear sense of how a course might flow from start to finish. As a contributor, you can create exhibits and organize the pages within in any order you like. Exhibits are also capable of including a range of files. In this exhibit, you can see that we have showcased the website's ability to post and easily share downloadable content. You can also browse the website by collections or items. When considering collections, think of them as folders which hold or box items. Users have the ability to set collections so that only specific content is contained within each. Notably though, this content is not ordered in any specific way. If I were to go to Linguistic Portraits, for instance, you would see a list of everything under the collection box called Linguistic Portraits. Browsing items allows you to see and access the individual posts and files. Currently, you can see that we have 34 total items, and that you can browse them in a variety of ways. If I browse by tag, for example, I can see the diversity of tags used by the website. By choosing one of them, say linguistic diversity, I can see then all those items that were tagged with keywords linguistic diversity. I can also simply search the items. If I came to the website and was hoping to find sample assignments, I might search for the word assignment. As opposed to using the tagging system, the search function will then search all content, including item titles and descriptions, for your chosen search word. As a result, you can see a range of things on the site that relate to assignments. As a contributor, you can post a variety of items to the site. These can include anything from images and videos to documents and links to pages and more.
Okay, so that was just a short video to show you the tutorial on how we feel that this website might be used. Let me see whether we can. Okay. Okay, and so looking at the future,
Okay.
you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So having done the first round, and we're hoping to scale up the study, and we are very fortunate to have gotten some extended funding from Cal, and we've been the recipient of a CeLTA fellowship as well. And what are planning to do is to expand the website to work with other colleagues at different institutions in the hope of applying for a larger grant with institutions across the Midwest. Next weekend, several of our colleagues from different institutions, as you see here, from Ohio State, Iowa, Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Wisconsin-Madison, will be in town. We're going to host a 2-day retreat with them, Koen and I. And Kate Seltzer, whom I mentioned earlier, who is Ophelia Garcia's former student at the Graduate Center, has just started a new tenure track position at Rowan University, and she's had massive experience as Ophelia's project manager in New York. And if you know New York, it's a huge school district. So, and Kate, as a former doctoral student, was involved throughout the development of the project. And that project has actually yielded a number of PhD dissertations, one of the participants was Nelson Flores, who's now at the University of Pennsylvania. It's been a long, ongoing project, and while we're not looking that far into the future, we also understand that there's potentially a lot of gain if we plan it properly, all right? And so that's what we're hoping to do, and out of that retreat, we would like to create a proposal jointly with our partners, and if all works well, land an external grant moving forward. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's an evolving project. It's definitely an organic exercise, but we now turn to the hands-on portion of things. You may remember from the earlier slides, we had Ellie and Christina present linguistic portraits.
Should we perhaps see with the questions?
Oh, yes, yes.
Perhaps, but if
yes,
this is a nice moment if you have questions first to... So we have an activity for you, but perhaps, you have some questions that you want to ask to us at this moment. Otherwise, we'll just get you started. No questions?
Well, so it sounds like there's 3 different things. That you want the repository, you want the virtual community, and then you also want to guide further designs of courses and activities for learners to set models for that to happen at other institutions.
So we want to create the repository, and we want to grow the repository with partners, and we're hoping. We're not really interested in doing courses because that sounds like it's top down in that sense, because we respect that our colleagues at different institutions may have their own way of using the materials. So the whole purpose is to share the whatever materials get created. And our 4 partners obviously have their own materials that they've developed at some point or another, like Gail Prasad at Wisconsin-Madison works more closely with graduate students. The materials that we developed originally was for an undergraduate citizen scholar course. Quite a fair bit of that came from my general education course, the integrated arts and humanities. So we're also looking across the range of learners, right? I mean, we started off by talking about K through 12, for example, and translanguaging and all that. So depending on who we successfully enlist in the future, we could run the whole gamut from K through 12 to graduate students in that sense. And the point is to share the materials, open access.
Could you talk a little bit more about how you expect that sharing to generate? So when someone accesses the repository, what do you envision they're going to use that repository to do?
Yeah, I think, and just coming back to your earlier question, Amanda, because like we feel like there is so much out there, but it's so hard to find. So many people are creating so many great experiential activities or syllabi, but it's really hard. Sometimes they put up a nice website, but then after a couple of years, nobody knows where it is anymore. So we kind of like were a little bit bold and ambitious in the idea that we could put up a website and maintain a website, because that will be also one of the big issues, the sustainability of this project in the long run, of having one access point, of bringing people to this website if they are interested in language and identity. So not as much like getting people involved in developing new materials as making everything accessible. And so I think both two main reasons are, on the one hand, we thought that this might be a nice place for people to go to if they need inspiration for their own syllabus, if they want to look at other syllabi, if they want to explore all these kinds of activities that there are, but also not just the activity in itself, but also a lot of student outcomes, products, productions, like the ones that Ellie, the different language portraits, to have a whole wide range of language portraits over the whole of the United States, the different states, different areas, so that people can, hopefully again, this might become interesting as well as a research base. Looking at, okay, what's kind of like the language portrait of, and probably this person doesn't exist, a typical or prototypical Midwestern male guy or female or whatever. And that you have a whole range of these artifacts that you can then kind of like really tap into and see again how you can use these for research purposes, or for your students doing small scale research on it, having them compare them and so on. So we are thinking about multiple purposes, but I think the big challenge is, first of all, kind of like fleshing out the whole idea of what is this repository, how can people contribute to it, and so we're taking it step by step, kind of like we started, the two of us, and with a couple of students, now expanding this to some of the colleagues in the Midwest, and then hopefully reaching out to a larger community that is interested in contributing to this repository.
And we're going to use the retreat basically to tighten what we want to do. What's more realistic, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just what the two of us want, but also what do our 4 partners want
Yes.
to do in that sense.
Yeah.
And so the retreat will also be a thinking but a writing exercise as we formulate our ideas, see what's doable in the short term, what's probably doable in the mid and perhaps longer term in that sense, because
So, and just because we met with all of these like last year and presented our project as we are presenting it to you now, and they all felt that they were interested that this could be something worthwhile. So we are now, the next step is exploring it again with the same group of people. How can we take it to the next level?
And Kate's experience will be valuable, right? Having managed a large-scale project, we need her to give us a reality check and say, okay, that's a great idea, but not feasible. And like I said, having worked with a really large urban school district in New York, and we value her expertise.
Absolutely.
So she's gonna also, I think, help rein us in and also tell us feasibly what are the logistical issues out there. Because as a practitioner herself, and then who then became a researcher as part of a large-scale research project, we value that expertise from her. So yes, these are just ideas, and so thanks, Amanda, for your question. But we also want to hear what our colleagues have to say. So that'll be our Friday afternoon exercise, where we kind of brainstorm and say, well, nice, but let's kind of scale it back to what's going to be manageable within, let's say, a 1 or 2 year time frame. And we can have a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, or something like that. And also, it's all contingent on how much funding is available to us. Stephanie?
I commend your open educational research resource approach. Have you considered Creative Commons licensing to formalize
Yes,
how these materials
we'll
are
need to do
used,
that.
how they may be modified,
Yeah.
and so on?
Yeah.
I think even in the initial stages of your planning,
Yeah.
you might want to think about that.
Sure, no, absolutely, yes. I think that's a big thing, because we want to have it under a Creative Commons license, non-commercial, but that people can basically adapt it for their own purposes. Yes. And we'll have to get all the people to to agree with that and provide the artifacts on the website for that purpose as well, which is a big challenge. But, well, of course. Any other questions? Or then, okay, I want to give the opportunity to try to create your own, not try, just to create your own.
In the 15 minutes that we have left.
Yes. So we have some nice colors for you there. So we have a little instruction.
Yeah, next one. So you may remember when Ellie did her linguistic portrait, she chose to represent different linguistic cells according to flags, right? But Christina, the graduate student, used different shades of blue.
Yeah.
So, Koen, why don't you guide us through?
Yeah, it's very open, so we don't want to put or imprint you with a certain way of doing it. So just think about what language means, what kind of languages that you have. Think also about the varieties of languages. It can be anything, dialects, registers, genres, whatever you feel that is appropriate for you as a person, and consider your thoughts and feelings with respect to your language practices. And then use whatever colors you have, whatever means you have to express that in the silhouettes, so that it makes sense for you, that you can tell a story about it, that you feel that I can talk to the world. If I show you my language portrait, I have a meaningful tale to tell about who I am and what role languages play in my life. So it's a very open assignment.
And I tried this out with my 361 students this past spring. 361 is the introduction to SLA for the pre-service teachers from the College of Education, and they produced some really interesting linguistic portraits.
Some of them are on the website as well at the moment.
I think Ellie did too. Or maybe it was just
Yeah, but you started out working on one Wednesday.
I don't like to hover around people. It cramps their space. And next time I'm looking over their shoulders.
in room B117. 17. It's from previous class, 117. Hypothetically, it's class 1240.
No.
And hypothetically, it's class MTH 113. But there is like ID. So, hypothetically. Yeah, hypothetically 1240, but ID is present here.
Okay, thank
Are
you.
you going to notify or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm all set.
Thank you.
No, I'll have to look at that tomorrow morning, so I have to ask the students coming in to prepare for my lesson. Yeah, I'll try to. Yes. Well, we are. Yes. Yes. Okay. Very still on it. Really expected it. Yeah. Yeah. Good. It's great. You see full power. Full power. This is on the 11th. Doing workshop talk on 12. Yes, no, me too. I can copy that. I think so. I'm not sure about that yet. So we could have go having dinner. I just had and some other colleagues probably might have dinner with him on Friday and then on Saturday when is he? Yeah. Okay. Is he flying into Yes. I don't know whether he has it's via Detroit or yeah, or they're probably not straight into yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think we see some masterpieces here. I don't know whether anybody, or perhaps you have shared them with your neighbor. If anybody wants to talk about it, feel free. We still have like a couple of minutes. Yeah.
She's very close to me.
And she's even got it on the phone.
Okay, can we put that on the website?
Yeah, no, take the permission.
Okay.
You can show your.
Yeah. Okay, let's yeah. No worries.
Okay, so I use like 5 languages. Some of them are just the languages that I am not that fluent, but I learned it before. So like blue is English, green is Mandarin Chinese, red is Hokkien, or you call it Taiwanese, and yellow part is the Japanese, and the purple part is the Spanish. So half of my body is English, half of my body is Mandarin Chinese, and the hands part are are the language that is used mostly used by old generation in Taiwan, which is Hokkien or Taiwanese, and I put them in the arms because I think it's very important for me to identify who I am and where I'm from. And the yellow part is the Japanese, because I learned Japanese for 2 years, but I'm still not fluent in it, and I'm not confident in it either. So I put it in the shoes part. And Spanish, I learned it for a semester, but it's totally like, if you ask me what language do I speak, I won't tell you I speak Spanish because it's just a little bit. So I put them into like dots, spread all over my body.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Mia. Yes. Anybody else wants to share one more? Yep. Yes, Genesis.
Okay, so I made a helpful little key too. So I have dark green as like my casual, my regular English in the center because I feel like this is very central to who I am. And then the lighter green is academic English, and I have it down the feet because that's the type of language that's moved me to where I am so far. Because I'm very academically focused. And then I have Japanese in red is something I still really think about a lot. It's not as natural to me as English is, of course, but it is becoming very close to me. I've studied it for a long time. It was one of my majors, so it's creeping down into my heart. And then I have English, Japanese, and German in the hands because those are the languages that I've used in the past to reach out to other people and to have to communicate and to complete certain tasks, or just to live. And the rest I have Chinese, German, and Spanish kind of in the air around me. Those are languages that are salient to me either because I've studied them in the past. Actually, for all of them, it's because I've studied them in the past, except for German that I did on my own. And then I have brown for the rest of the world's languages because those are also around me. Maybe I haven't noticed them. They don't jump out at me like German or Spanish or Chinese do, but I do hear them, and I get a lot of exposure to them, especially on campus with such a diverse population. So it's around me.
Great, thank you. Wow. Yeah. So how was this a difficult exercise? Do you feel like it was easy? Did it come easy? Did it come... Stephanie was just like...
I ran out of colors.
Oh, look at that.
Not as a fluent speaker, but because of what I hear here.
Yeah. Was it difficult to assign meaning?
It was like it forced me to decide, like
Yes.
what part of my body can I associate this language to? So I was kind of deciding if I should if I should put this language to my head because it represents something else to me. So it was also for me a kind of process that forced me to decide.
Yeah.
But I think about languages, so kind of awareness also was there.
Yeah, and that's often not always an easy process because, like, if you decide A, then you exclude sometimes some other ways of looking at that or expressing your meaning. Yeah. Okay, I think it's about time. We definitely want to thank, because we haven't been in this just the two of us. We had Ali's help, we had Hima's help, we had Matthew Wu, Christina Bonzio is working now on the project, Maddie made the video that we had trouble listening to, and Scott was involved as well in kind of like conceptualizing a little bit of the project. Peter, you want to wrap up? Have some?
Again, thank you for coming, and if you have any suggestions for us, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
This is, as we said, a work in progress.
Yeah.
Any input would be much appreciated as we try to pin things down as we move forward. What we think is an exciting
Absolutely. And if you want to have your portrait up on our website, please feel free to give it to us, and even write a little story next to it. So it would be great if we could put it up as an example. Yeah. Thank you very much.